We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Errol Spence fighting Thurman creates bad news for Terence Crawford. In this video, I will explain why. What up, fight world? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. 2023 is going to be a phenomenal year on the channel. Stay tuned. Lots of stuff coming up. So I've been thinking long and hard about this situation. Now, full disclosure, PBC, Premier Boxing Champions, nor Errol Spence or Thurman have actually confirmed this news. But ESPN came out the other day and reported that their sources revealed that Errol could be fighting Thurman, not at 147, at 154. And I've been thinking about this. I made a video about that, so if you guys want more on that specific topic, check the previous video. But I was thinking about it, and it led me to this video. And why is it bad for Terence Crawford? Well, you see, Terence Crawford for the last several years has literally fought one time a year for the entire year. And to me, that's bad. So this dates back from, this is the pandemic year, the year we found out about the pandemic here in the States, 2020. He fought Kell Brook in November 14th to be exact, of 2020. Did not come back until literally a year and 6 days later to fight Shawn Porter. And he fought him 11/20/2021. So no other fights in between. You guys see the box rec. He went from Kell Brook to Shawn Porter, literally over a year and a couple days in between those two fights. And then a year and a month later, after the Shawn Porter fight. So granted, keep in mind, Terence Bud Crawford, he announced to Bob Arum immediately at the post-fight press conference for a top-rank event after he beat Shawn Porter by stoppage, first to stop Shawn Porter. He told Bob Arum, he said, Bob Arum couldn't secure the big fights like Errol Spence when I was with him, so how is he gonna secure the big fights when I'm not with him? You guys can go back and watch it. That's what happened. So from 11/20/2021, after the Shawn Porter fight, we knew Crawford to be a free agent. He gets in negotiations as a free agent, no other representation really, right? Other than lawyers and stuff, but I'm saying no big backing and promoter, right? And he gets in negotiations with Al Heyman, Errol Spence, and his side. And this goes on from May or June or whatever it was of last year. And then at the 11th hour, he announces that he's not fighting Errol Spence because he has to get a fight in 2022. And he fights David Avanesian on a completely separate program, BLK Prime, who had never done a fight of that magnitude. This was a guy who was ranked lower than Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz and Thurman and a lot of sanctioning bodies. No one really truly wanted to see him fight David Avanesian. Everybody knew the outcome, and that's what happened. Now, this fight, it did abysmally. It's very clear to see. You know, some of the Bud buddies will say like, oh, but Terence Crawford made a lot of money. That's fine and dandy, but to do good business, it has to be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. Why would I want a situation that's only beneficial to one party? Those things aren't really sustainable. How can you sustain something that is not profitable? So while the Bud buddy's like, oh, you hating because he's getting 10 million. I don't care about the man's money like that, because again, how long can you keep doing that if you don't produce a profit, right? But nonetheless, I digress. He fought David Avanesian a year and a month after the Shawn Porter fight as a free agent in 2022. So let's tie this all in like only I know how to do. So for the last 3 years running, it's been Kell Brook only fight for 2020. Shawn Porter only fight for 2021. David Avanesian only fight for 2022. Now, you notice the fights are progressively getting worse. Meaning Kell Brook, he's a former champion, right? And then you go from Kell Brook, who hadn't really fought at welterweight in several years, Then you get to Sean Porter. Those are about, I would say those are the same because Sean Porter's a 2-time champion. But to go from Kell Brook and Sean Porter, it's regressed going down to a David Avanesian, which leads me to why this is problematic. So Errol Spence, he put on his social media April. Rumors are coming out that PBC is going to start dropping some fights. Rolly has a fight coming up that should get announced soon. And Errol Spence hinted that April would be the date. So if he is truly going to fight Keith Thurman, then what does Terence Crawford do? Now, I get it. He just fought in December, but will this be the 3rd, 4th year in a row that he doesn't fight more than one time? Because again, like I've been saying, Crawford's demands, how can anyone afford to pay what he's probably asking to get paid? Like, let's say the 10 million's true, which I'm not all the way sold that it is, but if he got it, more power to him. So if you got 10 million to fight David Avanesian, how much would you want to fight Boots, who's a better person, a better fighter, or Virgil Ortiz? And truth be told, it can't be Virgil Ortiz because Virgil Ortiz is fighting Stanionis, and Stanionis has postponed the fight because he had to get his appendix removed. So he had an emergency appendectomy, and now that fight gets pushed back. So you guys trust me or don't trust me, it doesn't matter to me. But if you look at it, this stage is being set for Terence Crawford to probably have more inactivity. Again, let's look at it. Let's look at the true welterweight picture. Crawford is going to demand, I would imagine, a heaping lump sum of money to fight anybody, right? He doesn't have representation as of me recording this video outside of him and his lawyer and his immediate team and circle and PR people, blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't have like Top Rank. He doesn't have Eddie Hearn. He doesn't have Al Heyman. So I'm very curious to see what the next move is to give Crawford activity. So this is why people such as myself complained when Crawford went AWOL and threw a monkey wrench in the process with Errol Spence, because it always made the most sense for Crawford to fight on PBC, just like Demetrius Andrade finally gets it and is doing, because everybody from 47 to 54 that I personally want to see Crawford truly fight are with PBC. There's only a few exceptions, and that's probably like Virgil Ortiz or Boots, but he's still fighting on Showtime and on Al Heyman cards, even though he's technically at this moment, I don't think he's with PBC directly. But Brandon Lee just signed up and he's being advised by Al Heyman now, and he was with Cameron Duncan just like Boots. So we'll see what happens next if Boots actually signs to the PBC. So the stage is being set. You guys, again, believe me, don't believe me, I don't really care. But mark this video down, save it as a playlist, and then come back to it, because I'm telling you what to look for. Again, if Errol is fighting Keith Thurman, let's just say this rumor is true, Ego rumor mill, that's the 4th month of the year, and it could be mid-April. So that's close to the 5th month of the year. No matter, first of all, Keith Thurman is not a pushover opponent, so Errol Spence would have to get past this opponent, right? But he should be the favorite, so I'll humor you. Let's play devil's advocate and say Errol Spence beats Keith Thurman if they fight in April. The man has to take some time to rest, right? He has to take some time to rest. So he's not going to come back. He's not Sugar Ray Robinson. This is not the 1950s or 60s where the fighters fight every 2 weeks and stuff like that, like the Ray Robinson days. It just doesn't happen, especially when you're making the type of money these guys are making. So we know that's done for Errol Spence for at least several months. Like even Canelo, he's not really doing that, you know, fighting every 3 months or back-to-back months. No one's really doing that. So May's done, you know, the summertime. I would imagine Errol Spence probably want to eat some good food, 4th of July, stuff like that. So that means he wouldn't at best come back until the second portion of the year, like the 3rd and 4th quarter. So again, what does Crawford do in the meantime? That's a true real life question. What does he do in the meantime? Because your last fight was David Avanesian. You felt you needed to do that instead of waiting until January, February to fight Errol Spence. You got that off. Now the game don't wait. They made plans without you, rightfully so. And Errol Spence likely is going to fight Keith Thurman, which is a good fight. And he's going to fight him at 54. So he might love the weight. Like, what if he stops Keith Thurman at 54 and he feels great at the weight? I'm just showing you how this works. What if he feels great at the weight? He might not come back down for those 3 belts, right? If he loves the weight. And this could be why he's doing it. I'm not Errol Spence. I can't speak for him. I'm just spitballing. So Errol Spence, he could be doing this to test the water, see how his body reacts, see how it feels to cut less weight. And if he loves it, he might not look back. So if Crawford were to fight Errol Spence, it would have to probably fight at 154, not for undisputed. So I just feel Crawford's career is going to be in the shadow, if you will, of Errol Spence, because what is his next move going to consist of? The type of money he's probably going to want if he got 10 million, or he's saying he got 10 million, is going to be ridiculous. Errol's booked up from April, and Keith Thurman will be booked up. You already kind of snaked and backdoored PBC, so there's no guarantee that they're going to offer up a Ugas or somebody like that. You got a great fight in Virgil Ortiz, Stanionis, that just got postponed. We don't have the actual date, but most people believe the fight will happen in April, maybe May. So who is Crawford going to fight? The only other name out there is like Boots Ennis, who just, he had a fight that it wasn't the most scintillating fight because his opponent was just moving all night and in survival mode. But that's a super dangerous fight. Will Crawford take a Boots Ennis? That's about the only other good fight that I could think of that's not Al Heyman that would be reasonable and available, because Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, Stanionis, Virgil Ortiz are all likely booked up. So I cannot wait until I see the comments and the responses to this Unpacked and the Bud Buddies saying, oh no, but Crawford, he could fight this person. And here's the thing, he just fought David Avanesian. So if he fights another guy that's regarded like a David Avanesian, not as like a person who's the best, then that's going to look horrific. That's going to look bad, because your whole welterweight run has consisted of guys at the time you're fighting them who weren't considered guys that were supposed to give you the toughest challenge at that given moment when you fought them, right? So there's that issue. It's going to be received very poorly if you pick another David Avanesian or Kerman Lajaraga or the guy that knocked out Lamont Peterson, just somebody random like that, right? That's one issue. Issue number 2, as I mentioned, is to have another lackluster type of fight. It's going to only perform poorly. And then you have to get somebody who is willing to front the type of dough that Crawford likely would want to gain or to get from a fight, all for a fight that they know they're going to lose. I just seen a report. DAZN lost $3 billion last year. That's DAZN. So companies, that's not good for any company. I don't care what nobody's saying. Ain't nobody trying to lose. It don't matter how many billions of dollars you're worth. You're not trying to lose billions every year. You're not trying to lose millions and billions every year. So I'm hard pressed to believe that there's any company that's just going to want to keep forking over cash long term to a guy like Crawford, and he's not producing the numbers. Like Tank Davis is setting records. He's younger than Crawford. He's whatever age he is, 28, 29. And Tank Davis is at the Barclays setting records, at the Capital One Arena in DC setting records, right? And he's fighting on more expensive pay-per-views. So to me, it looks bad for Crawford, especially if Errol Spence does fight Keith Thurman, because what is Crawford going to do? Who's going to be willing to pay $10 and $12 million for lackluster fights? Or you take a dangerous fight with Boots Ennis, you know what I mean? And what network would that happen on even? Does Crawford want that? Third, on top of all that is, or you just sit out and wait for Errol. You wait for Errol and Keith Thurman, which is happening in April, and you sit on the sidelines like Crawford has been doing and fighting one time a year. So let's say hypothetically Errol smashes Keith Thurman, then what? at the back half of the year, we get Errol Spence and Crawford. Then he's going to be on another long layoff unless he can get another fight in. But people feel he just got a tune up with David Avenesian in December. So you guys see the problem. If he takes another fight that's considered a tune up, then one, who's going to pay? And two, that's going to be received poorly because people think it's a tune up and you just had one, right? Or the other option is do what you've been doing for the last several years, which is only have one fight for the end of the year. I mean, this is just mismanaged career at its finest. You guys can say whatever you want. I say what I want, and I say what I see. You know, you fought one time a year with Kell Brook, one time a year with Sean Porter, one time last year with David Avenesian. So those are your options. And the funny thing is, people say, oh, ego, oh, Boxingego, you biased. I'm biased, but I'm laying out multiple different option A, B, C, and D. It has to be one of these options. There's no other way. So I'm not saying which way it'll go, but if Errol fights Keith Thurman, then he's locked and he's booked. And there's no way the Terence Crawford fight can happen. If Stanionis and Virgil Ortiz, as scheduled, continue to fight once he's recovered, then they're blocked. So that's already 4 top welterweights. And just from what I know about PBC, they're already working on their schedule. So guys like Cody Crowley, they're not waiting for Crawford and see what he wants to do. He was on vacation in Thailand the other week. You see what I'm saying? So they're working on their schedule. They're not going to be waiting around for whatever Crawford's going to do. They're going to be trying to get their guys fights and their schedule packed out and filled out. So I'm just curious what Crawford would be doing in the interim. Does he either A, fight, but if he does fight, is it going to be another tune-up? Who's willing to pay $10 million, $8 million or whatever for these tune-ups for Crawford? Or, again, the other option, sit out, wait for outcomes of Stanionis, Virgil, Errol, Keith Thurman. But either way, it turns into a waiting game for a fighter like Crawford who's 35, 36 years old. We unpacked. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.